tidings he brings to you and your kin. Is that right, Chris? Do you bring good tidings?
I do.
Oh, good. Blessings are light and
Me?
dark to everyone.
Blessings light and dark to everyone. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is all about you today, this show, isn't it? The
Is it
Faustiest
really?
of them all.
Oh dear. No
Because
doubt
the
that will be
Christmas season, the season of obligation is well and truly over. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I know that you're somewhat between the realms and also somewhat between thinking when the year actually starts versus when it actually starts, you know? Because officially it starts today, doesn't it? New Year's Day.
New
The
Year's
1st
Day.
of January. January, yes? You
Yeah.
don't agree with that though, do you?
What's that? I don't agree with January.
You don't agree with the beginning of the year being on the 1st of January?
No, well, for me, I get a bit confused between a few of them, to be fair. I think a year for me starts on my birthday, obviously, because it's all
Of
about
course,
me.
because it's all about you, isn't it? Well,
It's all about
today,
me.
Chris, it is officially all about you. The world, universe, in fact, revolves around you for this very special day, the day we like to call Chris Mass.
Oh dear.
Okay? So, if anyone's got any questions for our new Lord and Savior, our Faustiest Witch of them all, please do feel free to write them in the comments, and I will read them no matter what they are.
Oh dear. It's Pick on Chris Day today.
So, at this time of year, that is not officially the end of the year, but is officially the end of the year, at least not in your religion, the religion of what are we calling your religion? Faustness?
Maybe.
Satanism's a thing, so we can't go for that. What are we calling your cult?
I don't know. I really don't want one. So,
Oh, well, you've got one.
ideally, nothing catchy, Liam. Nothing catchy.
Nothing too catchy.
Yeah.
Okay. The cult of Faustus.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
But yeah, the other part that's New Year for me has always kind of been, which sounds oddly Wiccan, but is obviously All Hallows Eve, kind of. So
well,
new.
yeah, I mean that's every year should be just a month. Sorry, every year should be just full of Octobers. There should be 12 Octobers in a year.
That sounds confusing, Liam.
That would be brilliant. 12 Octobers in a year. Or we should just get rid of all the other months and just have a year's worth of Octobers. Wouldn't that be good?
Maybe.
We should. I think that we should change the days of the year every year to be a day that's named after a number, because I figured that would be so much easier. We just have the number of the day and the year of the day, right? You know, like in accounting, they have like the 52-week calendar. There's like week 52.
So you want there to be a 320th day of the year?
365 days in a year, I think there, isn't there? I think we should have 365 days in a year, and I think we need to get rid of all these months because it don't mean nothing, does it? And just replace them all with days, and then everyone's going to be very, very, very much better. They're going to be much happier with all of the calendars and that, because it would just be a big list of numbered boxes, right?
Okay.
And then you say, well, which what? I don't understand. Which month did we go for? It'll be just no. It was day 302. That was the day. Can you bring this in when you take over the world, Chris?
No, I don't like it. I much prefer the lunar calendar. I'm not going to lie.
The loony calendar.
The lunar calendar.
The loony calendar. Okay. Well.
Yeah, I like the idea at the day starting at the new moon and working its way through.
That does make sense. It is something that you can see. You can't really see the difference between the 31st of December and the 1st of January. You can't really see that much of a difference, can you? I don't think. But you can see
I
a
like
difference
having
when
a
the
visual.
moon's physically kind of looking different in the sky, innit? That does make a lot of sense, I would say. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
Maybe we'll get
I
to that.
kind of like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chris, what sort of year do you feel you've had? Because I know there's this kind of tradition of naming decades, isn't there? Do you have like the noughties, which was the 2000s? You've got the roaring
Yeah.
20s, which was 1920s, not current 20s, you know? If you were to name the year that's just gone, the year of 2022, what name would you give that year?
I don't know.
You've really prepared for this, haven't you?
Well, I don't know the questions you were going to ask me, do I? I don't know what I'd call this last year. I suppose it's felt like the first real post-COVID one. I know we've still had COVID and other things, but I feel like, it's been a little bit like the year of the flu, where everybody's just got sick all the time, as all those illnesses have come back that were kind of suppressed by us not talking or being anywhere near each other.
Right, the year of sickness, the year of being blindsided by bugs.
So I just kind of feel like the whole year has been very much like that. People have just been sick most of the year with different kinds of things going on.
Could this not be some sort of biblical plague of some description? Because I mean, that's what our good Christian friends would think. Do you think there's some sort of plague or something like that that is swept across? Well, you yourself has been affected, haven't you? You haven't been feeling very well for about, what, a month?
Almost, yeah, about
Almost
3 weeks.
Yeah. Really on the lead up to a certain deadline that you've got, isn't it? It's just been getting worse and worse and worse. Almost like this is some sort of a punishment.
You'd call that convenient, wouldn't you? Because you think any time I avoid something, that's purely that's intentional. You don't like to think that I actually have a life and that I have lots of things going on in it, and that maybe I'm going to struggle with one of Liam's deadlines.
But it was a self-imposed deadline, don't give me this bullshit. You know that you were supposed to be coming out with this Mythos series like a year ago, and it's taken 365 days you've had over that, and it still hasn't come out. And you've blamed 1 week of being ill on the reason why this hasn't happened at all this year. Shame on you. Shame on you.
Because that's the only thing I have to do, Liam, isn't it? It's the only thing on my list that needs to be done. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I know, and you still can't even do it. I mean, he's just admitted that's the only thing on his fucking list. It's top priority, and now our Patreons need it.
You're a moron.
We have our first question from the audience. I would love to know when Chris realised he was a witch and how he knew.
Oh, God.
When did you realise you were a witch with a small W rather than with a big W, Chris? When did you know you didn't want to be a famous magical practitioner, but still go around calling yourself a witch?
I didn't start officially calling myself a witch with a little W until I was about 11.
Oh, okay. Normally that's when people stop.
So that's kind of when my work kind of started. So I started working for others, in which case that's probably when I would call a witch, is when you start practicing for others.
Is that like professional snobbery coming in here?
That's professional snobbery coming out. That good old elitism that I like to spread. So the first time I started working for others, I was about 11 or so. First time I knew I was kind of psychically advanced, shall we say, I was probably about 5 or 6. But that was because I used to finish my granddad's sentences with phrases I couldn't know because I didn't really read at that point, and definitely not at
You didn't read?
But not at a university level when I was 5, Liam.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if anyone was, I would imagine you were like a Sheldon type, which was
No,
like just
I
came
was.
out of the womb. When you hatched out of that egg, you hatched out of that egg with like, I don't know, not obviously the entire works of the Bard because he's overrated according to you,
I can't
but at
stand
least like
Bard.
the Britannica
Yeah,
encyclopedia.
yeah.
No?
And then I immediately beat someone to death with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, that does sound like a very good origin story, Liam, but no, that's not what happened.
Every religion needs an origin story. I mean, Jesus had that thing about the manger. You had this thing about coming out of an egg with an encyclopedia and beating people. I mean, which religion would you rather be a part of? Some smelly
Well,
manger or knowledge and badass beatings?
maybe. Again, stop trying to start a cult, Liam. I don't have the time for one.
That's because you
Um,
outvoiced that Mythos series. It's the one thing you had this year to do. If you'd have got that out of the way in January last year, you'd have had the rest of the year to make a cult, Chris.
yeah, a lot changed this year, Liam. Let's not forget that the demands on my time haven't dramatically increased this year. Thank you very much.
Do you think this year will be different?
I'm hoping so. I think I'm better
Okay.
prepared for this year.
Right. So to answer Michelle Miller's question, because she'd love to know when Chris realized he was a witch and how he knew. How did you know that you was that thing, that word with the W in front of it? How did you know? And how did you embrace that specific word? And why did you embrace that specific word? Why not call yourself a magician?
I suppose, and partly it's because I grew up in the 90s, and you had kind of shows like Sabrina and again Charmed and things going on, which meant the language was available to kind of understand. Obviously, the big one for me was fucking Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I really instantly hated the word Wiccan as soon as it was first uttered. But that was before I even really knew what Wicca was. I just didn't like the word Wicca, which says something because obviously, there are some that try and make it out to be a Celtic word. And being in the kind of the Midlands where kind of, Celtic language still exists to a certain point, that'll upset the Welsh. That kind of Midlands kind of accent and kind of utterings has kind of a visceral kind of self about it that you would think would like Wicca over the word witch. But yeah, I think I gravitated towards that word probably, during my early teens.
Right. So I'm getting from that Sabrina the Teenage Witch, you pointing at people and glitter firing out the end of your finger.
You're
That
so
is
funny.
when he knew he was a witch. We need to be thinking about the origin story, Chris, here. You need to jazz it up a bit,
Okay.
right?
I hate glitter, so it
Okay.
definitely wasn't that.
He hatched, beat people with encyclopedias, ended up starting to do what magical hit witchery at 11 years old, something like that. And then he'd shoot glitter out of his fingers because he saw Sabrina do it, right? And then he knew he was a witch. He made a declaration. Did you make a declaration? Can you remember the first time that you actually said to someone or told people to refer to you or was called by someone else a quote unquote witch?
That was about 12 or 13.
12 or 13. Do you know who it was? Was it your mother saying, "You evil little witch"? Or did she just call you a blighter up until that
No,
point?
because mum probably wasn't involved until much later on in my teens about knowing
Okay.
what that was.
Okay.
Obviously, one of my first loves was weather magic. So, I think probably one of my best friends, Lucy, is probably one of the first to probably use that word. But that's because we used to spend a lot of time talking about it and demonstrating. I think I've talked about it before, where playing with flags and other things that blow in the wind was quite an amusing pastime, shall we say? Where it was kind of like, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again.
Playing with flags. Okay. Is that what you used to do in the playground at school?
Well, not particularly at school, but kind of on the walk home, kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
So, as we now are allowed to use our new diaries with 2023 written on the covers, do you subscribe to this thing where people make New Year's resolutions? So they say, oh, I'm going to finally do this thing that I've been telling myself I'm going to do, or I've been putting off and using as an excuse for I'll do it at some random beginning of some random numbered year. Are you one that subscribes to New Year's resolutions and such? And will you be getting your, what do they call people that follow someone in a cult? Followers, dedicants, and such. Will they be expected to set New Year's resolutions, or is it up to them, or what? Because they're going to want to emulate what you do, being the unholy one, you know.
Oh, okay. My flock.
Your flock, yes, your flock.
My flock.
Yeah. The ones that you turn into yarns.
I don't tend to set New Year's resolutions ever.
Okay.
But I must say that this year, I have spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks while I've been stuck in bed sick, kind of thinking about changes that I'd like to make next year.
Is that to the world?
No.
Are you wanting to create that single world government you've always wanted?
No, I've never wanted a single world government. That's far too boring. You've got to have variations. You've got to have people to blame, Liam. That's how wars work.
Divide and rule.
I don't normally, but this year I have some things I'd like to change.
Like what? Is this personal life things? Is this actual things in the world? Are these habits? What is this? Can you give us like some examples or something?
So this year, like last year, technically now, last year I've just allowed myself to become far too mundane, hence the 3 weeks of being sick. I can't remember the last time in my life that I was ill for that long. I'm very rarely ill, full stop. So for me, it was a big red bleeding kind of flag that kind of said, you fucked up here, love. So first one is kind of, making sure that I'm less mundane this year, rather.
So this is going to be a very magical year for you then?
Maybe.
What sort of magic do you see yourself magicking up?
I don't know. I'm wondering about, I've treated myself to a few things from Santa. Things like a coffee grinder and things like that in order to play with some incenses, I think, and some more candle work, which I haven't done for ages.
Are you going to be
making of them?
You're going to be making candles. Are they all going to be red though, or are you going to expand your coloured repertoire?
I only make red candles for me.
Yeah. You're making ones for other people.
So I might be making some for other people.
Okay.
But yeah, I've got a few things I'd like to kind of just. Yeah, I feel like I've watched my garden die this year as well, where it's really shown all my imbalances throughout the whole year. So I kind of need to diversify, shall we say, my garden.
Is that a euphemism?
No.
Okay. No. So in the actual physical garden that you have that was dying off, did everything die off at once? Or was there a symbolic kind of this thing started to fade as your vitality faded, this thing started to fade as your mental focus? Did the rosemary fade at all when your mental focus faded or anything?
I've actually had my latest little I can't think of a better word. Cutting, sapling. My latest cutting, which was from, I didn't cut any at all this year. So the one that from the previous year, 2021, has so slowly shriveled up and gone into dormancy.
Oh.
I've had to give it one hell of a cutback a couple of months ago to kind of hope that it comes back next year, but we'll see. What's really funny is the things that have gone wild in my garden, I think, are far more telling. So inside, my aloe vera plants have gone wild. They are huge. Another thing that's constantly happening is regardless of how sick a couple of my orchids have got, they have continually thrown out flowers throughout the whole of the winter. So I think things like that are far more telling than the things that have died. I don't think anything's really particularly died in the garden. It's just, it's not done as well as it normally would.
Right.
So there's a few kind of softer things that have died off. Well, not really died. Yeah, there are a few softer things that have died off, like chive and rocket and things like that. And then what's really suffered is my mint plants. They really haven't done well this year. And normally I take probably 2 or 3 kind of harvests throughout the year, don't I, of all my mints, which kind of shows how my mercurial imbalance has occurred this year, where I've kind of struggled on that front a little bit.
So are you still feeling somewhat delicate at the moment then, or do you feel you're back to normal?
No, I'm back to normal. I'm just not as focused as I probably should be. I think I'm just resisting the urge to go bull at a china shop, because that's normally my standard speed. So I'm just kind of not rushing myself to max at the moment. But
okay. So what do you think your biggest project will be this year then? Because you've said you might be doing some candle making. Have you got things in mind for that?
Bits and pieces, just playing with them a little bit more. I've never been particularly successful at scenting them, and I've come up with some ideas that I want to try out this year. I think the biggest one will be finding a new house. I really want to move this year, and finally kind of purchase a house rather than rent one. So that'll be the biggest change this year, potentially. Is making sure all the ducks are in the right row.
Are you going to be doing some magic to make that happen then, or is this just mundane changes?
No, these will be magical ones.
Oh, magical changes as well.
I need the right one.
Personal gain, Chris? Are you using magic for personal gain?
Of course, all the time.
Oh, Chris.
All the time.
Well, you reap what you sow. Clearly, all of that terrible nastiness that you've been doing for all of these years, karma has finally caught up to you, and you've had a month worth of sickness.
Hey, if karma had caught up, I'd be a lot more than sick. I'd be dead.
Well, this just proves that karma's bullshit then, doesn't it? Because you should definitely be dead by now.
I should definitely be dead by now, at least 3 times.
If karma was ever going to come for you, it would have been when you were ill. And we could
finish me off.
Well,
we tried pretty hard.
If it couldn't get you then, it's not going to get you now, is it?
I've had every kind of sickness going in these 3 weeks. Every 4 days, I've had a brand new sickness. None of them have killed me.
Maybe
the first one came pretty close.
The karma scratch testing you to see what sticks. You shouldn't have fell asleep on a medical textbook again. It's been interfering with your dreams and manifestations.
But yeah. No, and another thing I need to do is re-establish my altar to myself.
Why? Did the Christians come and trash it and
No,
erect a church on top of it for the Jesus Christ or something?
it's just been a bit neglected this year.
Oh, you've been neglecting yourself in more ways
I've been
than one.
neglecting myself.
Oh.
So yeah, so 2023 is going to be the year of Chris, I think. Yeah.
Oh no. Is that
Yeah.
so? Last year was the year of, I don't know, post-COVID sickness, let's say.
Yeah.
Unwarranted sickness it was last year, and this year is going to be the year of Chris, which incidentally, even on the first day of the year of Chris, there is a Chris mass. Oh dear.
Yeah. It's going to be one hell of a year. I've got a lot planned.
Is it going to be positive in general this year, or is it going to be negative? Or are we all going to feel your wrath?
It's going to be positive for me.
Yeah, but what about the mundanes and the others? What about us lot that listen? Both of us.
I'm not worried about that. No, I'm not worried about you lot. You lot can deal with your own shit.
That are listening, you're not worried about. That's not very nice.
Nah. Hey, they need to follow suit and do exactly the same. Strengthen one's base. Strong foundation.
That's what the pigs did wrong, wasn't it?
That's what the who did wrong.
The little pigs, you know, 3 little pigs, the 3 little Wiccan pigs.
3 little Wiccan pigs.
Bad magical foundations, isn't it? And then the wolves came for them. Don't hear much about them now, do you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wolves came. Never mind. But yeah, so it's it's going to be an interesting year. I feel that it needs to be a good foundation because it's my 33rd year, Leo.
Oh wow!
You know they love a master number, whatever you call it. What's those? Is it angel numbers?
Yeah, I think 666 is the bad number, isn't it? And 999 is the good number. Hence why you phone it in an emergency for angels to answer and then say the ambulance may be an hour or 24 hours, or it may not turn up at all. If you're having a stroke, it won't turn up because we no longer class that as a big medical emergency. You may have to drive yourself to the hospital. Or if it's Wales, I doubt they even pick up, do they?
Wales have an ambulance service?
They do, apparently. It's just the one.
Is it a helicopter?
No, it's just the one. It takes a long time for you to get there. And if it does whisk you away, you hope to God it's going to take you to an English hospital.
Oh, that's awful. We pick on the Welsh too much.
No, but it is true. I've spoken to real life Welsh people, you know, not the fake Welsh, the ones with the Welsh accent that live there, right? And even they say Welsh NHS, oh my gosh. Right, we've got another question from your biggest fan, I think. When did you first realize you had access to all of your lives and how did it affect you? Do we want to talk about your first breakdown?
My first breakdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. So probably my early 20s was where I kind of got to grips with what it was. Had access before then, but you do say realize. I think early 20s is when I kind of realized what was going on. And that I'd accessed more. I will add a caveat of saying I don't have access to all. I keep a lot of them locked, and for good reason. The some of the doors are firmly padlocked and bricked up. Some of them.
Do you have keys to those padlocks?
I have keys to those padlocks, but I don't like what it will do to me.
Do you know what's behind them?
I have good ideas of what's behind most of them.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't kind of give full access all the time because So in terms of memory, it was a really hard process through my teens. I went to see many a psychic because I didn't want access myself. So how Liam will make some comment about how I prefer to get the lesser beings to do the work for me. Servants, I think Liam would probably
They
call
burn
them.
up, don't they? It's like on that episode of Supernatural when the witches cast the spell and such like that, and it feeds back and they all blow up. It's basically what Chris did during his teens, but we're just with psychics burning them out. So there's this part of me I want to look at, but I don't really want to do it myself. Any chance you can have a look? Sure. How difficult can it be? I'm blind.
Yeah,
Are those psychics still
there was
alive?
a fair bit of that.
Are the psychics in the psychiatric ward?
Yeah, I've burnt a few psychics out. Let's just say that. Yeah, because it was hard for them to see what they needed to see. But yeah, so I spent a lot of my teens in that kind of denial-y space of not wanting to deal with it. So realizing is a tricky one because I don't know what you would class the line as, but I would probably say early 20s, when I finally accepted I had access and started using that access properly. I think before then I'd kind of avoided it.
Fear? Is it fear?
A lot of it was fear, mainly because I had an idea of what was behind most of those doors.
So is that denial then? Is that denial of parts of yourself, or is that fear of what it would turn you into, or is that fear of what would happen to you, or what?
I like the idea that I'm nice. And I know access to all of that makes me not nice because I stop caring.
So delusions then.
The more access I have. So I like to
Are you seriously telling me that these padlocks and gates, the only thing that stops you from unraveling and becoming a greater aspect of you or greater aspects of you is this thin veneer of delusion that you've kidded yourself into thinking that you're nice?
Yes.
Oh dear, God help us. It's going to be an interesting year, isn't it?
It's not a delusion. It's more an illusion that I like to keep up the pretense of. So I know categorically I will care a lot less about balance if I open all of these doors. So it's safer that those doors stay shut. And we know, Liam, that you've asked many a person to have a look at what happens if I open all of those doors. So let's not pretend.
I've asked a couple of people what would happen, but then
Let's
I just do that because it's fun.
Yeah, you find it very entertaining.
It does amuse me.
No, I like the veneer that is humanity that I cling on to while I can.
It is a veneer.
I know that this saddens Liam because Liam would rather me be the chaotic mess that I would be otherwise, because he would find that far more entertaining. But I am holding on to the illusion that is my humanity for as long as I possibly can.
Okay. Do you think that it's going to slip away at some point this year?
I don't know if it'll slip away this year. I think there's an aspect of me being magic all the time. If I get to there, that will be the kind of trigger, I think, to a certain extent. I think practicing more is just healthier for me. I think if I get to the point where I'm all magic all the time, that's at which the point where some of those seals might fall off.
Right. Does it happen the opposite way? If you stop doing a lot of magic, then do you find that the seals just become more firm, or do you find that your grip on being able to keep them in place falters? They
Well,
will
no,
when they start shaking. Will the zoo animals start shaking on the cage when they realise the zookeeper is in fact sleeping on the job?
no, Liam, because you know well as well as I do that I have several guardians that hold a lot of these doors closed because I don't trust myself to just be the only one that has access to keys.
Oh, the key holder.
There's a few key holders around that have access. Bound them to my soul for a long time. But they do their job well.
Have they got a choice?
They got a choice when they decided.
Did they fully understand?
This is where people often misunderstand lesser and greater eternities. What can I say?
Yeah, when someone says to Mr. Chris, if there's anything I can ever do to help you out the way you've helped me out, just let me know. And he takes them up on that for an eternity.
No. These understood that in the right context, they understood forever was forever.
Did they really understand?
Yes.
Okay, all right. They understand it now, don't they? If they didn't then, they do now.
So yes, in those days we understood that you pledged yourself forever. You pledged yourself forever. I just don't know if they necessarily thought they would be held to that.
They figured, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then they thought that the big nice washing of the dying and that, and the nice dissolving, that somehow they'd be able to get away.
I think there are worse places to be tied.
Yeah, probably. But
Much
there are
worse
also better
places.
That's the point, isn't there? There's also better things.
So.
Oh wow. Magical contracts for you.
When someone works hard for the person that they work for, surely they get a satisfaction from the job that they're doing, right?
This is what you used to tell your slaves back in the day, isn't it? Your satisfaction comes from serving me properly.
Yes.
Yes. You should have no greater satisfaction than for me to turn around and say, yes, well done. Off you go.
I'm very grateful.
The slightest of nods is all they crave, Chris. The slightest of nods.
I give a bit more than a nod.
Oh, do you give a thumbs up as well?
No, I would never be so vulgar.
Is that frightfully common, Chris?
It's frightfully common. Frightfully common.
Okay. What about 2 thumbs up? Is that better? Is that more common or less common?
Do I look like the Fonz?
I give 2 thumbs up.
I am not the Fonz.
It's bad, isn't it? It's bad.
I am definitely not the Fonz.
Thumbs? No thumbs?
No.
You get the thumb screws out if they give you. If you see a thumb, you get the thumb screw out. Is that what happens at your cult?
Maybe.
Oh no, not the bad ring.
But yeah, I hope that answered a question. I think how it affects you is different for everybody, and I think
how your past lives affect other people is going to be different, isn't it?
How your full access to everything is tricky. Also, full access. This is the other thing. People think that it's like, oh, I have full access now. I've just got a reader's pass, and I can just go in and read whatever I like. I think most of them don't consider the fact that the brain has a limited capacity for holding information. So holding on to all of them at one time would just make your head explode. So the kind of interchanging of downloading when you need and what you need, and then putting it back, it goes a bit over certain people's heads, I think.
So are you doing any work on yourself then from a magical perspective, whether that be shadow work or whether that be strengthening certain magical skills or going down certain rabbit holes and, you know, dabbling with things that you may have not dabbled with before? Is there anything like that in the pipeline?
To a certain extent. I don't know about never done before. But you know, I is still obsessed with the triangles at the moment. So kind of magical applications for some of those is kind of something that it really intrigues me at the moment. Just because I like I suppose they're working out, not necessarily that they're useful in any other way, but I like the puzzle, and I've been enjoying that, kind of applying what I know to something that isn't normally me. So the whole planetary system and the tree of life, like, is not something I would ever really have looked at. So I've been quite enjoying the playing with that idea. Still dabbling with the concept of the master chord as well, that we talked about in episode 25, Weaving Planets of the podcast. Like, I'm quite intrigued by actually completing that, because I've solidly built all of the 7 classicals. The outer planets, or the higher planets, I've not created those chords yet. And that's because I'm struggling with deciding exactly how. The rest are so pure, kind of build, the kind of 7 classical are so rigid, like they have quite defined outlines, so they were really really easy to kind of create into something tangible. But the outer planets, I'm kind of struggling with what composition of natural fiber I would use. It just take Pluto, for example, trying to find something that is there but not there, kind of trying to embody that in something physical is problematic. So I kind of want to revisit that project, which I haven't touched for quite some time now. I was also playing with some blended ones, wasn't I, for bast fibers. I was looking at those the other day, thinking, I'd quite like to revisit those. But I haven't quite decided on what material kind of represents those higher planets. With the lower ones, I went with my kind of favorite fiber because it's so rigid and quite obvious. Kind of beyond that is a bit sketchy. Like with Neptune, trying to embody the entire zodiac in a single thread, again, it seems problematic. I know how I work that from a magical point of view, but trying to bottle that up into something tangible is the trickier part. Kind of, though, the higher planets you're used to working with up there, you don't really pull them down to this kind of 2-dimensional space or 3-dimensional space. So I don't know.
Are we going to have a Morai thread?
I don't know, because I kind of feel like the Neptune thread would very much be that, and it would kind of exist.
Well, you should blend the 3 of these. You should blend Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn together to make a Morai thread. That's what I probably would think of doing. But yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if you would produce one. And if you were to produce one, would they be able to buy it on the new Thoth shop?
I don't know. I kind of almost feel like something like that would just have to have. It would either have to have a ridiculous price in order to restrict who could have access to it, or it would have
Chris. Elitism.
Or I don't know. I just, how the lengths I go to making everything that I make neutral. and I'm not sure how neutral those will get.
Well, they wouldn't be, because they would
So,
have to manifest in the
yeah.
physical plane in order to be a physical item that someone could buy. Therefore, you would have to be involved with the process of that.
So, but I've managed to kind of neutralize the way with the classics. The classics were easy enough to do. These are something so much less tangible. You know, kind of creating a kind of chord of creation, I guess, I think we called it. Something like that. I don't know. I struggle with the ethics part of it, shall we say, of creating something like that and then making it commonly available. So yes, I'm not sure. Even though I will complete the process, because you know me, I like to close a deal. I'm not sure whether or not it becomes something that's commercially available, or if it's something that is kind of under the counter, shall we say.
Who would be able to buy such a thing under the counter?
I don't know yet. I suppose we'll discover in the renegotiation of the tier system, I suppose, of the new website.
Okay.
I don't know if is it possible to have things that are only available in the shop from certain.
Well, it's always possible if we put it in the astral.
So, well, yeah, that's the safest place to put anything.
Yeah.
But
I'm in a display case in the astral.
But yeah, so I don't know. I haven't quite decided. I know for a fact I definitely wouldn't make the Master Cord available.
No.
I think that would have to be a gift.
Okay. That sounds like an initiation of sorts, though, if you're given that as a gift, because that implies they have to earn it. That's better than one of those little prefect badges, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I feel like as a gift it would have the. I would feel better with them not having bought it. Does that make sense? So less about initiatory rights, but more about, can I draw a line under it and say, I trust you with this? It's more of that, I think.
Someone's now got a long-term goal.
As to whether or not I would trust somebody with something like that. Mainly because I've made it. I think that's where the ethics comes for me. Because you know how we deal with most things. Most things we deal with on the basis that you do it yourself. And I think for where the ethics comes in for me is to do with the fact that I made it. So I made that thing tangible for somebody to have access to. And that feels too much like a legacy to me. You know, that's kind of what I struggle with, is the legacy of making something available. I know that we put in certain parameters, shall we say, around what access is available. You would have to, have that access in order to be able to attach that access, if that makes sense. But still, there is that part of me that struggles with it. Ethically making something like that available. But we've talked about similar projects before, where we talked about kind of the Jumanji game and all that kind
of designed for people to cause trouble for people, and that they have to get out of that.
Yeah, but we've never put a price to it, though, have we? We've used it as a kind of
but
questing.
That couldn't be done.
We kind of consider that a questing job.
Libraries of artifacts, isn't it, where you just loan it out to people. They have to leave it to us in their wills when they inevitably die trying to play it.
So, so we do that sort of thing all the time, where we talk about kind of where the ethical line is for whether or not something should be purchased. It's mainly because, I object to the whole money, enough money will buy anything you want. So I kind of object to the fact in this particular time period that actually it's not on finance, it's on what's deserved, shall we say.
It cannot be bought, can you?
No, I cannot be bought. So yeah, so I think there's that part. I know you can. You're a cheap $2 whore, but
that's not very nice.
But no, I'm all about earning.
Well, we've got 10 minutes left of Christmas. Okay. Do you want to do your best choir boy impression?
I am not singing.
Well, you don't have to swing, but there's the kind of choir boy thing that you do where your face looks all innocent like and that. Can you do that for us?
I'm not switching it on midway through a process.
Oh, okay. It has to be from the start or not at all, doesn't it?
Yeah. Otherwise, they might catch on to how it's done.
Ah, I see. Right. Okay.
But no,
so
no choir boy routine.
You haven't got any super exciting projects that you're really doing that involves any of our dear patrons or listeners or viewers or anything like that, then?
No.
Are you not in the development of anything or thinking about doing anything exciting this year, content-wise or class-wise or workshop-wise or product-wise or anything that the playing people that are undeserving of the,
The Mythos thing will definitely come out this year.
That so can be bought, can't it? They can buy you that way, can't they?
That can be bought, but that's just to cover the time that it takes.
Okay.
Because like I said earlier today, Liam, unlike your ramblings, these are going to be well thought out, borderline lectures. They'll still be rambly because I won't have written a script.
So wait a minute. How does that work then? Because surely if it's a lecture, it's like there's notes and stuff and you go through things in logical order and all that kind of thing. It's not like as a whim, is it?
Yeah, so it'll have a structure to it. It just won't be fixed. I'm not scripting them. So because if I scripted them, you could just read them, couldn't you? And I wouldn't have to record them at all.
But we'd use a text to speech.
So,
Microsoft Sam could read them in his wettest voice possible. That could be interesting.
So there's that. There's our really interesting project that I'm looking forward to doing, which is the best Wiccan book never written.
I haven't spoken about that yet, Chris.
I know you haven't. But if I throw it out now, they'll have all sorts of questions to ask later.
What about the book we're writing?
So yeah. So there's that. I'm umming and ahhing about a Textile Magic, either series or download. I'm not sure. But that really depends on how the chords go. Because really, if I'm going to make something commercially available, it has to have some kind of instruction with it, I guess. Because people can't be trusted to be, creative enough to come up with their own ideas about how to use the things I create.
Is there a specific case that comes to mind?
My planetary threads are well and truly genius, and they don't sell anywhere near as much as they should. So we should be out of stock.
The thing is that most people, when they think of threads, they'll think I can get that cheaper at Reggiana's or in the supermarket or somewhere like that, and not realizing that even from a mundane sense, that's actual handmade, isn't it? It's not like some machine that's done it in China. It's actually handmade with an actual spinning wheel. And then from the magical perspective, they're not really going to understand that anyway, are they? So like we
And
did
that's
say when we did the project, anyone that's going to understand how to use it is probably going to make their own version of something. It probably won't be necessarily thread unless they're into textiles, but it might be arrowhead, say. We've had someone do that, haven't we?
so yeah. So I think part of it is that. Part of it is anybody that has the understanding to utilize something like that would probably attempt to do it themselves. I must say, people that have used them in quite interesting ways. But I think partly that's out of knowing that something has come from a safe source. Safe is probably the wrong word.
Yeah.
You know, where they've used something that they know is worth using because it's not somewhere like Ranjani's, where they've gone in and bought something that, you know, at some 2-bit thrift store.
The Reginas of Witchcraft.
Yeah, the Ranjani's of witchcraft.
Also known as Glastonbury.
Moss Iceland Spaceport. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
I'm only joking. Glastonbury doesn't sell anything at Reggiani prices.
No, they really don't. But, you know, you'd go into somewhere like that and they go, oh, here's magical cords for sale. And they've just come over from fresh China, you know?
Yeah, it does. It all comes from AliExpress, most of it. I've been in those witchcraft shops. Nemesis now, AliExpress, and Holistic Trader.
So also, I'm not sure some would understand the kind of how little would need to be used. So some people think about the magical cost, kind of, they don't think about, they'd be kind of like, oh, well, there's not enough there for me to make an entire such and such. They don't think about, oh, I just add a little bit here to add that in.
Sew a button
on something and kind of go, oh shit, I just disguise something very mundane in such a mundane way that no one would ever think to look there. But then I don't think many people practice enough incognito magic.
No, because they all want, it's a lifestyle thing, isn't it? These Glastonbury people, they all want to look like a stereotypical witch. They don't want to be a witch, they just want to look like they are one.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
Probably the reason.
What's going on with the incense making then? Because I know you were into the teas and that at one point, weren't you, with the tea samplings and stuff that you were doing? Are you going to develop a range of incenses, and if so, what does that look like? Is that incense based on a specific plant or a family of plants, or is that like planetary or theme in any way, shape, or form?
I don't know yet. It's one of those things that I'm not sure whether or not would want to make them commercially available. I just looking for the new challenge. And that's something I haven't really explored in this lifetime anyway. So I kind of want to, you know, just explore my way through. Part of it's also the fact that I want to use up a bunch of magical collections I've got, where you just kind of like, you know, everything, although things don't really have a expiry date, they do have a best before, in my opinion. And there's kind of like a limit to how long I'd like to keep most kind of ingredients, shall we say, before I just kind of, you know, you may as well throw those away or bury them somewhere. And so not to kind of want to do that and want to use them up and make them useful, I'm kind of thinking that actually magical incense might be one way around it. But yeah, I just kind of want to explore botanicals in a new way. I'm used to using them in so many kind of normal ways that I just kind of feel like I never really go to the, I suppose, specialist way. I never kind of push something like that all the way to there. I do the things for me, but I don't really package things up in a way that is possible for other people, I guess. Yeah,
Well, incense is a bit behind the times now. I mean, it was very big thousands of years ago, and it was quite big in the 90s and that with all these cones and stuff. Now it's all about the vaping, Chris. Magical vapes. Someone was
No,
talking about that in the root, doing the magical vapes. I think, honestly, that's probably not very healthy. But then if you watch these people with these fucking charcoal discs burning all that shit in the house, that's not healthy either. So,
yeah. Well, how else will you get all that cancer into them? You've got to find more and more creative ways.
processed food's one of the good ways, also processed food, isn't it? But anyway, that's it for this edition. This is magical edition of Christmas. Maybe we'll make this a yearly thing. Who knows?
Don't know.
Goodbye, everyone.